I'm Lisa. I'm the Barefoot Pampered Chef, and I hope you're having a good Sunday. So sit back, relax, grab a notebook, because we're going to go through a lot today. Now, I've gotten a lot of questions about things such as, what if you're a little bit afraid to cook and fast food is just an easier option? Or what if you need something that's a quick grab and go lunch to make at work? And there are a lot of different things that we can do for that. The very first thing that I kind of want to introduce you to, that I'll show you some mason jar salads here in a second, is Pampered Chef has a mason jar make and take, which actually in the lid it has a space for toppings or your salad dressings. It can come in a lunchbox container that you can take with you. That is the perfect way to do a really nice healthy lunch. And so today I'm going to show you 3 make and take salads. We're going to do a side of garlic bread, and we're going to do another pasta side, and I'm going to give you some really good tips along the way. As you can see, I've done a lot of mise en place. So we have put things in place in order for me to make this a really quick prep, and you can do this on a weekend. You can involve your kids in it. It's just a really great thing to get going. The make and take mason jar, the kids can take to school. It's made out of resistant plastic, and so they can take that, so you can incorporate healthy salads or healthy meals into their lunch in that jar. So the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make our super quick garlic bread. So on my large white round, I've got pieces thick cut of some Italian bread, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my silicone basting brush and one of my 1-cup prep bowls. In here I have melted, in the actual prep bowl, a 1/2 cup of butter, 1 tablespoon of fresh basil, 2 cloves of garlic, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to mix that around. Now this is something you can make anytime for dinner. It's really quick. You could actually make this mixture, pop the lid on this prep bowl, and keep it for other times. Just heat it up in the microwave before you brush it on. And we're just gonna generously brush this onto these pieces of bread. And then we're gonna pop that in the oven at 375, which I've already got it set at. You always wanna make sure your oven is preheated before you go. So while I was prepping, my oven was preheating. And that's going to cook for approximately 15 to 18 minutes. It depends on your oven. You just want them nice and golden brown. Now these you can eat cold. If you have a microwave at work, you can kind of warm them up. They can go with your salads and be packed in, I usually pack them in little Ziploc baggies or containers. Oh, this smells so good. This is fresh basil from my garden. If you're using a dry basil or a dry herb, remember the 3-to-1 rule. If you have 3 tablespoons of a fresh herb, you're going to use 1 tablespoon of a dry herb. If you're using 3 tablespoons of a dry herb, you're actually going to use 9 tablespoons of a fresh herb. So that's a really good tip to kind of keep in your memory banks there. So I think I've got all of this done. I'm going to pop this into my prep sink so I can clean it later. And I'm going to pop these into my oven. For an added touch, you can always add some Parmesan cheese on top of those. So what we're going to do is we're going to start our salads. So I'm going to grab the first one. And let's see, we'll do the Italian chopped salad first. So we're going to grab this. Now, the very first thing we're going to learn is how to layer a salad to take in your mason jar so that everything comes out pretty nice and fresh when you go to eat it. So on the bottom, you want to put your grains and your beans. So any grains, any beans, kind of your starchy options down here. Then we want to layer our heartier vegetables, or maybe vegetables that have a little bit more juice to them, because those are going to soak into the grains and they won't get crushed by everything else. Then your delicate veggies, then your greens, and then you're going to put your toppings on top. The dressing you're going to leave off until the day that you make it. So for the Italian chopped salad, first off, we're going to make a vinaigrette. So a vinaigrette is pretty much an emulsion, so a blend of an oil and a vinegar. Now those two things normally don't go together, so we're going to make them blended together. And so for the vinaigrette, I am going to use 1/3 cup of olive oil. I've got my prep bowls here, and I'm going to use 2/3 cup of balsamic vinegar. Now to this, I am going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. This is dried oregano, so remember the 3-to-1 rule. And what I'm using is these are cute little foil mini cupcake things, because you can use them again and again, and they're great for prep because you can have your kids do them and you just fill them with whatever ingredients you have and they're all separated. You can actually do these for lunches too, to separate things inside one container. We're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder. We're going to add 1 tablespoon of sugar. And all of these recipes are on the Pampered Chef website. And we're going to use 1/4 teaspoon of basil. And there was 1/4 teaspoon of salt in there, and 2 garlic cloves as well, which are in my were in my oil. So we're going to close that lid tightly. Whatever container you have will work. And I like my vinaigrette shaken, not stirred. You can whisk it. I just feel shaking gets it a little bit more of an immersion. So there is your light Italian vinaigrette. So now with this, I'll show you how to make the salad here in 1 second. But what you can do is we're using a ditalini pasta in the salad itself. So I've got a jar, I've got my pasta in it, I've got little pieces of pepperoni, and I have a cheese stick, mozzarella cheese stick, that I actually just cut into chunks. And since we're not going to use all of this for the salad, I'm going to pour a little bit of it in there. Close this, and I'm going to kind of shake that to mix. And now I've got an Italian pasta salad side to go with my salad. Oh, this looks so good. So yet another dish that you can make and take. So now we've got our vinaigrette, and we're going to set this aside because, like I said, we're going to add that on the day of. So to our jar, we are going to add our pasta. Actually, it's putting the pasta in a little bit later, but that's fine for this layer. We're going to add a spiralized, this is the greatest thing ever, the Pampered Chef Spiralizer. You can make spiralized, this is a 1/2 of a seedless cucumber. So I'm going to put that in the bottom. Kind of make a layer, because that's a pretty hearty vegetable. And then I'm going to do 1/2 cup of halved cherry tomatoes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, and this is my close and cut. So what I've got in there is my cherry tomatoes. I'm going to take my knife, close this up, slide my knife across. All of those bad boys are cut in half, and I don't have to do anything else. So I want about 1/2 cup of those that I'm going to throw in there. I'm going to do this again. I smushed them a little too much. There we go. Much better. So I'm going to throw those in there. And then I'm going to throw in my pasta. So we've got about 1/4 cup of pasta in this recipe. Now the pasta, what I used is my microwave cooker, which I'll show you. Here's the big microwave cooker. And I did that in the microwave. You put the pasta in, you fill it to just above the pasta with water, and you pop that in the microwave for 10 minutes. So that's one of the items that I can't live without, is that microwave cooker. I've actually had it since college. Now, what we're going to add is we're going to add 1/4 cup of avocado. Avocado is a little bit more of a softer or more delicate fruit or vegetable. So we're going to layer that on in there. And these salads look so pretty. I'm actually going to save a bit of this because we're going to use it as a topping for something else. And then after the avocado, we're going to add in 1½ cups of just chopped romaine. That's probably good enough. We're going to add 1/2 cup of diced cooked chicken. Now this is a roasted chicken that I made last night. It's another one of the demos. So you can do that fairly easily. And then I've got one of my big cupcake cups here. And we're going to add a tablespoon of blue cheese to the top of this. And we're done with that prep. So that is your Italian make and take salad. Now, since I've been having some issues with technology, I'm going to take a quick second to check my phone and we'll make our next salad. All right, it still seems like we're live. Yay! So our next salad we're going to make is an Asian crunch salad. Now what we're going to do with this is first we're going to make an Asian vinaigrette. And as you can see, I have notes all over the kitchen. These help me stay on task. So for my vinaigrette, I am going to use 1/2 cup of veggie broth or chicken broth. This veggie broth happens to be this chicken broth happens to be what I made last night in my rock crock slow cooker that I can't live without as well. We're going to add 1/3 cup of rice wine vinegar. So again, a vinegar with kind of a fat. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of reduced sodium soy. We're going to add a tablespoon of sesame oil, 2 teaspoons of honey, 2 cloves of garlic. So there's that. Oh, we can't leave you in here. Honey, you stuck. That's what the scraper is for. Perfect fit in these little prep bowls. And then what we're going to add to this is 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger. And we're going to add 1/8 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. Now, if you don't like a lot of heat, don't add a lot of those. They go a long way. You really don't need that many. So again, I'm going to put the lid on this and I'm going to shake my vinaigrette and make it into an emulsion. Again, with the sesame oil as well, don't go overboard because that can permeate everything. All right, so I have my Asian vinaigrette made. And like I said, with all of the other vinaigrettes, we're going to add that the day that we eat it. So now we're going to layer our jar. So the very first thing we're going to put in is another 1/2 a spiralized cucumber. Just kind of layer it on there. We're also going to put in some carrots. You can spiralize a carrot as well. I happen to have some baby carrots left over, so I'm just going to give those a little bit of a chop with my coated chef's knife here and throw those in. The next thing that we're going to do is add some red bell pepper strips. So the way that I made those is I ran a red bell pepper over my veggie strip maker. That's a great thing for kids. It's fun for them to do. And about 1/2 a bell pepper. So this is what they look like. We're going to add those in. So So the next thing that we're going to add, because I'm going to use this for another dish. Oh, there's a lonely cucumber that ran away. Is, if I can pull it out here, we're going to add 1/4 cup of cilantro, so that's kind of your greens, and we're going to add 1 cup of chopped red cabbage. So the red cabbage, I just took a little bit off of the head of red cabbage, and I'll show you what I used here. This is my 3-cup prep bowl. I cannot live without these prep bowls. These are amazing. Oh. Most of the time I don't make as much of a mess when I'm prepping these. So we'll put that in there. I just threw my red cabbage into my manual food processor and chopped it up. This thing can get anything processed in a matter of seconds. So I've got that layer in there. We're gonna add about half of a cup of diced chicken. Again, this is from the roasted chicken that I made, so we're utilizing leftovers. With that roasted chicken, you can make a whole bunch of meals for the rest of the week. This is only one small 4-pound roasted chicken. I've made 3 salads, I made another dish, and I still have some left over. And then on top of this, we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of dry roasted peanuts. These I can save. We'll put that over there. And this is your Asian crunch salad with your Asian vinaigrette. And that is another salad done. So last but not least, we are going to do a burrito bowl. So I've got all of my mise en place for my burrito bowl. And this burrito bowl has kind of a different dressing. It's not exactly a vinaigrette. It's more of a cilantro ranch style dressing. So I'm going to do it in a little bit bigger of a jar because it's not all going to fit in my little container here. So what I'm going to add first is I'm going to add 2/3 of a cup of Greek yogurt. And like I said, if you've lost your place, all of these recipes are on www.pamperedchef.com. Just do a search for recipes. And this is called the Burrito Bowl. Actually, you can probably just put in the search term Mason for mason jar, make and take, and these will all show up. So I've got 2/3 of a cup of Greek yogurt. Now, if you don't like your Greek yogurt, you can use sour cream in this dish, so that's a little bit of a substitution there. We're going to put in 1/2 cup of buttermilk. If you do not have buttermilk, you can use a little bit of vinegar and milk. You can find that conversion online, and that will work as well. I tend to freeze my buttermilk into cubes so I can use it at a later date if I don't use it all. So in this, I also have a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. I have some salt and pepper and 2 cloves of garlic. So I'm going to pour all that in there. And to this, oh, here's my salt and pepper. I didn't have it in there. I'm going to add some salt and pepper to taste. And I'm going to add a tablespoon of chopped fresh cilantro. If you're using dry cilantro, which isn't it's usually not used, you can use, you would use like a teaspoon of dried cilantro. So we're going to just shake this all up. And this is our cilantro buttermilk ranch dressing. Now this you could take it with you, you could pack it for the kids, and you could have some veggies to dip in it, or even some pretzels or chips to dip in that as well. So this is a really good ranch dressing. Now on to the burrito bowl. So in the bottom of my jar, I have my black beans because they are my starchy, they are the bean or the grain. So I've got 1/4 cup of black beans. Next, I am going to add 1/2 cup of quinoa, or about 1/4 cup of cooked quinoa. You can do this in your rice cooker plus. You just take 1/2 cup of quinoa and 1.5 cups of water or a broth. I used a broth to make it flavorful. And then you just set that in your microwave for 15 minutes. And you can use the leftover quinoa for other things. It goes really good with kale. You can make a quinoa kale salad. So quinoa in there. The third thing we're going to do is put our cherry tomatoes in. So probably about half of a cup. If you don't like cherry tomatoes, I'm really not a cherry tomato fan or a tomato fan. You can use an avocado to take the place of that. Anything that's kind of bright and poppy kind of a vegetable, or just gives that meaty flavor to it. You could use mushrooms. That would maybe give it that same texture. So there are your cherry tomatoes. We're going to use a quarter of a stripped bell pepper. So that's approximately a quarter there. Anything that you have left over, feel free to use in other dishes. Make another salad, make another jar. You can probably make a couple of meals with this. Then we're going to add a quarter of a cup of corn, which is somewhere. Where'd my corn go? Oh, here it is. Ha! Sometimes when you mise en place, things aren't in place. So I've got a quarter of a cup of corn. This was just frozen and thawed corn. If you have the corn cob or the kernel cutter, you can just use a regular sweet corn and use those kernels. So there's about a quarter of a cup of corn. And then I have about 1.5 cups of chopped romaine lettuce. Again, I did this in my manual food processor. You can just buy shredded lettuce if you want to, but I tend to like things a little bit fresher than that. And then on top of that, we're going to add our cooked chicken. So again, the roasted chicken. Now there's one thing that I forgot to add to our buttermilk dressing. And that's just because I wanted to talk to you about it first. So I'll show you this and I'll show you what to add. So this is our burrito bowl. So these salads, hopefully you guys can see these. I'll hold them up, maybe. They look so pretty. I mean, you'd be the envy of your workplace if you took these in. Now, the last ingredient for our buttermilk ranch is actually 1 lime, the juice of 1 lime. Now, I am severely allergic to lime. I know it's the weirdest thing in the world, but I can take lemon. So I am going to add the juice of a lemon to that. It just kind of brightens it up. Anything citrusy brings out flavors and things and brightens things up. So we're going to give that another shake. So really, we've gone through a lot today. We've made 3 different dressings, 3 different salads, a side dish, which is almost done. My really nice toasty garlic bread there has a few more minutes on it. And we've also made a side dish of a little Italian pasta salad. So last but not least, what I wanted to tell you is that for kids' school lunches, if you want to send them with a healthy chip or a healthy snack, Pampered Chef has a microwavable chip maker set. So now if you pair that, and bear with me, this is a really old version, with the apple slicer. So this is really fun for kids to learn how to use. They just make little spirals of apples and it peels it at the same time, so it's great for them to use. The new version comes with a table clamp and a stand. And you can use the chip maker and that to make these amazing crunchy apple chips to send them to school with. You can use carrots and make carrot chips. You can use pretty much any vegetable that has the texture of an apple, potato, that kind of a thing, to make great healthy chips and snacks for them. And they are so good. My son loves these, and I think I have a few friends that would pay me to make them for them all the time. So hopefully you guys got a lot out of this prep. I have a lot of leftovers that I'm going to make some other dishes with and show you how to use. And I hope everyone has a really, really healthy lunch now. You can find everything that we use on www.pamperedchef.biz/Lisa Wright, LISAWRIGHT. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter at #BarefootPC. And you can find me on YouTube as well. Thanks. Just search for the Barefoot Pampered Chef. Have a great Sunday.